One. Hey Vinesh, how's it going?
Yeah, Ayush, long time. How have you been?
I've been good, man. I was just wondering if you've seen the trailer of this new show called Laila. It seems like it's based in India.
I've heard about it, but I haven't seen it, so let's check it out.
Oh, awesome. Okay, let's play the trailer here.
जय आर्यवर्त। अपने काम के लिए जान देना, आर्यवर्त के लिए जान देना, आर्यवर्त के लिए आहुति देने को सदैव तत्पर रहे।
तुमने अपने समुदाय से बाहर विवाह नहीं किया था?
Smile.
आपका जीवन परिवर्तित होने जा रहा है। परिवर्तन के लिए तैयार रहो। जय आर्यवत।
मेरी बेटी को ढूंढना है। तू मेरी हेल्प कर, मैं तेरी हेल्प कर दूंगी।
प्रॉमिस।
नरक की यात्रा के लिए तैयार हो?
धीरे धीरे खिड़की बंद कर।
मिश्रित बच्चों को लेके जाते हैं क्या?
जिए आर्यवर्त के लिए, मरे आर्यवर्त के लिए, श्रम करें आर्यवर्त के लिए। जय आर्यवर्त।
मिश्रित बच्चों को सरकार ले जाती है।
प्रोजेक्ट वाली याद रखना, लैला को ढूंढते वक्त। अगर मुझे कुछ हुआ तो तुम भी नहीं बचोगे।
मैंने कहा था तुमसे, तुम्हें तुम्हारी बेटी कभी नहीं मिलेगी।
Wow. So what do you think, Vinesh?
Whoa, that was dark and dystopian. Um,
Yeah.
it looked like it looked like Nazi Germany set in a futuristic India, basically.
Mm,
You know,
that's
um,
right. That's what I thought the moment I saw it.
I got a Handmaid's Tale kind of vibe from it. It was like very controlled society, very totalitarian. Everyone's chanting "Hail Aryabart," kind of like "Hail Hitler."
Right.
It
Right.
was it was creepy and disturbing to say the
Wow.
least.
Yeah.
So that was obviously a very big budget production, very high production values. It was an impressive, definitely it looks like a very impressive show. But before we get into the actual imagery and the things we saw, let's talk about who's behind this. Like, I want to know who wrote it, who directed it, who's kind of promoting it. Who's the writer, Ayush?
Yeah, so the show is based on the this novel called Laila, and the novel is written by this guy named Prayag Akbar. Prayag Akbar interestingly happens to be the son of MJ Akbar, who was a member of parliament. And he was also the deputy editor at Scroll.in. What is really interesting about this guy is, or his father is that his father was appointed as a member of the committee to draft a 10-year charter for Muslim nations on behalf of the Organization of Islamic Corporation. So, and then he retired from politics, after numerous allegations of sexual abuse and rape and stuff. So, Prayag Akbar happens to be his son.
Interesting. So yeah, so it looks like MJ Akbar is a major Muslim politician in India. And this is his son, Prayag Akbar. And what's Scroll.in? I've heard about it, but I don't know much about it.
Yeah, so Scroll.in is a very left-leaning media establishment in India, and it was started by this guy named Samir Patel. He's a businessman and a venture capitalist, and most of the articles that they write, has some sort of a Hindu-phobic agenda behind them. So they're very well known for writing Hindu-phobic articles.
Interesting. Yeah, yeah. I'm seeing a lot of, I'm looking at some headlines right now, and I'm seeing things like how Hindu nationalists built on the roots of majoritarianism in India and normalized public violence.
Wow.
That's
Yeah,
definitely has
yeah,
a perspective.
that's right.
And there's one
Uh,
more here. It says, by design and delusion, the project to radicalize Hindu India gains momentum. So they seem very concerned about Hinduism in India.
That's right. Yeah. So all the articles, most of the stuff they produce is essentially aimed at subverting Hinduism. And it was actually started, another co-founder and editor of Scroll.in is this guy named Naresh Fernandez. So he's based out of Goa, and it seems like he's a Christian. So yeah, it seems like they do have some sort of an agenda there.
Interesting. Okay, okay. What else do we know about Parag Akbar? Like, where did he go to school? What's his background?
Looks like he studied at Dartmouth and London School of Economics, and both these schools are, where like the top elites of India study at. So it seems like he's part of, the Lutyens, gang in Delhi who obviously are self-defeating and self-hating. They don't really have anything good to say about Hinduism, and seems like he's part of, it's popularly called as the Khan Market gang now.
Interesting. Yeah. So basically, he's kind of like a Delhi-raised elite guy, studied in Britain for his education,
Yeah.
major politician as a father, and worked at Scroll.in, which is a vehemently, kind of anti-Hindu, anti-nationalist publication. So
That's right.
interesting. Yeah. And as I'm looking him up, I see a couple of interviews with him about as Leila came out, he started doing a lot of press on it because it's a major marketing push, right? And so.
Yeah.
And here's something funny he said. He said that regarding the story, he says, I might have exaggerated certain aspects, but most of what I've written about is all around us. And the worrying thing is how close we are to that place. The
Wow.
purification camps where errant women and men are taken back to get pulled into the Hindu fold.
Oh God. So essentially what he's saying is that everything in this show is not a work of fiction, but is closer to reality. It's something that is just around the corner, and we as a civilization are about to get there. And I think he's, indirectly inkling towards the current BJP establishment. He's saying that, oh, because, the Hindu nationalist, so-called Hindu nationalist BJP is in power, therefore eventually India is going to become something, as is shown in this docu-series or whatever, like this show.
Interesting. In the same article, he goes on to say, the Laila story became sharper and more potent as my anger grew from reading the continuing reports of social violence that had been enabled by the BJP's rise to power. So exactly what
Wow.
you're talking about. He
Yeah.
says it's interesting because the societal divisions, the atomization that I write about, is a long-standing problem of Indian society.
Right.
It is the communitarian violence that always sees you ramped up. And I
Yeah.
try to show it in the novel. It is
Yeah.
directly linked to the philosophical rhetoric of those in charge.
Right.
So a direct line to the BJP and the Modi government for sure.
Right. Right. Well, so it looks like this guy definitely is not someone who's an independent writer. He definitely is part of, the agenda and the establishment, and there is definitely an ulterior motive there.
Totally, yeah, yeah. It's funny. He actually, Narendra Modi actually attended his wedding because his father was a prominent politician, so all the
Right.
big guys came. And so
Right.
the interviewer asked him about how, what that experience was like having Modi at his wedding, and he gets very
Right.
uncomfortable.
Right.
And Akbar goes on to say, I had all my Delhi liberal lefty friends there, and I could see their jaws dropping to the floor.
Oh God.
So he's
basically-
admitting he's like a liberal lefty guy.
Yeah, he's confessing it. So he's basically he has no qualms about admitting that he's anti-BJP, he's anti-Hindu, he doesn't like, all of that. So
Interesting.
it's not rocket science to draw that connection anymore.
Yeah, I mean, given his background and given his own words, it's almost like he's projecting his image of what India is becoming and what it's going to become
Right.
in the not too distant future in
Right.
this show.
Right. Vinesh, so looks like we clearly know that this guy, is not independent. So let's see who else is involved in the production of this series.
Yeah, so Parag Akbar is just a little biased after reading his interviews and seeing his kind of
Right.
his fear and terror about Hindu India and where it's going.
Right.
So a little bit. So okay, yeah. So who else is involved? Who's directing this show?
This show is directed by this famous director. Her name is Deepa Mehta. And in the past, she's directed various movies. She's done the Earth, Water, and Fire trilogy. And Water movie was about how in ancient India, widows weren't allowed to remarry. So the movie is about how the life it's basically a movie about the life of widows who weren't allowed to remarry and how miserable their life was. So it's essentially, an inconclusive, not a properly researched attack on Hinduism. And all her movies fall in the same bracket.
Yeah, I can see that. It looks like Fire was about, two women in arranged marriages who then have a lesbian relationship because they're so confined by their, by their structure. And
Yeah.
I'm seeing constant themes of child widows and homophobia and the evil of arranged marriage and really just a skepticism of Hindu traditional practices.
That's right, yeah. So all the movies that she's made, I mean, some of the, movies that she's known for are essentially, the hidden agenda, the hidden theme is to undermine Hinduism in those movies.
Yeah, or also to depict India as a really like racist, violent, horrible place. Like I'm seeing her last movie was called Anatomy of Violence, which is all about gang rape and misogyny and the caste system. So,
oh my God, yeah.
So it sounds like she's not exactly neutral either, looking at her
That's
background.
right. Yeah, it's funny how all of this is not even hidden, it's like so out there.
Oh, totally. Yeah. This
Yeah.
definitely seems like they're making a point. This isn't some like, oh, let's just write about India. It's really about, let's make a point about India as we see it.
Right. Okay, also, I think it should be helpful since you worked in the tech industry. It'd be helpful to learn a little bit about Netflix. So why is Netflix interested in, hosting such Hindu-phobic content?
It's interesting. Netflix, and a lot of the big tech companies, it's a deeply liberal company, right? It's not a politically neutral place. They are very much on the side of, the liberal left kind of political sphere, and they're very skeptical of conservatism, of anything nationalist or kind of traditional in that way, right? So it kind of fits with their kind of political leanings that they would put out a big budget production like this that really makes nationalism and Hinduism look very dangerous and Nazi-like, right? Just in terms of political donations, in terms of their founder, they lean like a 99% left. Like there's no question about they're deeply, political company, and you can really see it in the past productions they've done about India.
Right.
Shows like Sacred Games, shows like Ghoul, India's Daughter. It's all about promoting a certain narrative, which is India is like a rape capital. It's a misogynistic place. It's a racist place. There's a caste system there.
Right. So essentially to produce, sort of make a pile of atrocity literature so that can be used as a premise to intervene, by various stakeholders in the future. So that's the ultimate idea, right?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think Netflix, they push what they believe in, and we know what they believe in by the donations they give, by the politicians they support, and by the founders' own statements. So we're seeing really a pattern here of an author, a director, and the production company being all deeply liberal and deeply left and deeply skeptical of Hinduism. And they're all kind of collaborating here to produce this piece of, art, which, obviously just by the trailer itself, we can see has a lot of negative Hindu connotations about it. So let's get into the trailer, Ayush. I really want to know, I want to just deconstruct this thing and see what it has to say about, about our culture and traditions.
Yeah, let's do that. Let's deconstruct the trailer.
Okay, now that we've discussed the people behind this production, let's get in the actual show itself, the imagery, the ideas and the words, right? So the first thing I noticed was that they named the country Aryavart.
Right.
What can you tell me about what that means, Ayush?
Hey, so Aryavat is a Sanskrit term that is used in some of the Hindu scriptures, including the Dharma Shastras, and it means abode of the noble or the excellent ones. So it's not a made up term. It's actually a term that is there in Hindu scriptures. So it's important to note this.
Interesting, yeah, and I think I'm curious why they use that term here. And it sounds like they want to refer to Hindu India.
Right.
But also, Aryavart to me sounds like Aryans.
Right.
And Aryans makes me think of Nazis.
That's right. That's a good point. Yeah. So that's why they're sort of, they intentionally use this term.
And given the show's fixation on racial purity, it kind of, it makes a clear connection to Nazism, right?
Right. But what is funny is that they say that, in the disclaimer, they say that has nothing to do with religion, but the term clearly is a Hindu term. So how can you say that? How can you say it has nothing to do with a religion when you're lifting a term directly from a Hindu scripture?
That's right. And there's so much more than that, right? Because throughout the whole show, they keep saying the main kind of motto for the country is Hail Aryavarth, right?
Oh, wow. Yeah, that's
Which
right.
is just like Hail Hitler in Germany, right? This was
Yeah,
totally, it's just they're drawing a straight line from India, Hindu India, to
yeah.
Nazi Germany here.
Right,
And the
right,
citizens are constantly told, they're told, work for Aryavarth, live for Aryavarth, die
right,
for Aryavarth, right?
right, right.
I mean, you can imagine like, live for Deutschland, die for Deutschland, right?
Yeah, right, right. Yeah, it's definitely taken from there. And
Yeah,
you can even see like the party members, chanting Hail Aryavart, sort of like you said, is akin to saying Hail Hitler.
totally.
Uh, and the other interesting thing is, how saffron is the predominant color of Aryavart.
Hmm.
And symbol, as you can tell, saffron is something that is dominantly used in Hinduism and, Hindu organizations. So they're essentially trying to, portray that.
Yeah, I mean, even the symbol that they use for Aryavarth is like it's like a Surya sun sign, right? It
Right,
looked vaguely Hindu, and with the
right,
yellow, it looked definitely Hindu, right? And so
right,
it was interesting, when I see like Hindutva activists, if I
yeah,
do Google search, I
right.
would basically see the guys in the show.
Right, right. So anyone like, so I think the idea is that the current like people who are super Hindu or endorsing Hindus by wearing something saffron are the ones who are essentially going to be responsible for creating the scenario that is shown in the series.
Yeah, and the scenario that the author himself discusses, what he's seeing happen in his mind and what he wrote the
Right,
book about, right? So,
right.
and even the leader of Aryavarth is this guy with glasses, and he looks a lot like Narendra Modi.
Yeah, yeah. Although I would say that okay, like looks like he's a lot younger than Modi. But what I found really interesting was like the victory sign.
Yeah.
And they everyone is doing this, and you can see many Narendra Modi speeches where he does the victory sign. So I think that's the soft, sort of inspiration that they've drawn from Narendra Modi's body language.
They are not very subtle at all, are they?
They're not subtle at all. Yeah, that's right.
Um, and also I think that one theme I kept seeing again and again in the show is this idea of racial mixing is prohibited and racial purity is the most highest, virtue. And if they're mixed race kids, they get abducted, right?
Right, right,
So it sounds a lot like again like Nazi Germany. It's a really
right,
really stark dystopian reality they're kind of portraying here,
right.
which really has no basis in reality too. I mean, like in terms of Hindu history and in present, there's no notion of kids getting abducted because they're mixed race or
Right, right. This
being
has
killed.
never happened. There's no historical evidence of it. Yeah.
Yeah, there's no genocide in Hindu history, so I don't know what's going on here as far as how they're portraying it this way.
Right. There's genocide of Hindus, but there's not an instance of genocide by the Hindus, right? So
That's right. That's exactly
this
right.
is a complete opposite spin of, what the history is.
Exactly, exactly. Yeah, and it was pervasive throughout the show. Like there was one scene I remember where a woman is ritually humiliated by being forced to marry a dog, and
Right.
she's wearing a Hindu wedding dress, and the
Right,
dog
right,
is wearing a mala of flowers, right? So it's like
right, right.
classic Hindu imagery yet again, right?
That's right.
But she's
No,
being humiliated and ostracized, right?
yeah, similarly, there are also instances where I think the spiritual so-called spiritual leader, he's called Guru Ma. Guru Ma is a very is a very prominent name used by followers for their guru, and he's shown doing a havan. So that clearly is inspired from Hinduism. It's not. I mean, people are not stupid. You can clearly tell that that's a Hindu practice.
Totally, yeah, yeah. I'm
Yeah.
seeing multiple examples of Hindu imagery. Also, all the men wear they're all the not men, but all the men and women. They
Right.
wear these malas. They wear these like traditional like sacred beads
Right.
with the picture of the leader, which is a very common thing in Hinduism where people wear Rudraksha malas and
Right.
they have pictures of their guru on their
Right.
mala and the havan you mentioned and
Right.
even the marrying a dog thing
Right.
as crazy as that might seem to
Yeah.
a Westerner,
Yeah.
there are traditions in India where women are married symbolically to a
Right.
dog to ward off negative influences. So there
Right.
is kind of a cultural
Right.
indigenous background
Right.
here.
And that's protected, by the freedom of religion. You have the right to do whatever practice you believe in as long as it doesn't create a nuisance. So this is clear bigotry. This is essentially you're making fun of someone's religious practice. It's akin to making fun of someone wearing a burqa or someone wearing a headgear,
Yeah,
or
that's
someone
right.
wearing the hijab. And
That's right.
so So there is no difference here. It's the same thing.
That's right. Yeah. I mean, there was even a scene where I saw the women in the Aryavarth wearing traditional, almost like Hindu garb. They're wearing this maroon color, which is sacred in Hinduism,
Right.
and they're rolling on these palm leaves with food on it.
Right. Right.
And as you and I know, this is actually an ancient practice in India and in certain temples in the south, where
Right.
after Brahmins eat their meal that's been
Right.
offered to the deities,
Right.
people actually will often roll on that food as a show of submission of ego, right?
Right, right, right. And there is, I mean, you cannot make an argument that is somehow is an oppressive practice. I mean, that it is for the followers to decide. They think it is, that is what they want to do, and this is part of the tradition. So it's been going on. But to use that and somehow incorporate this in the series and somehow make people believe that it's not really Hindu is too much of a stretch. It definitely is a Hindu practice that they've lifted, and they're basically trying to make fun of it, and they're trying to subvert it.
That's right. That's right. Yeah. I mean, I'm seeing multiple examples now of direct Hindu terminology, Hindu practices, Hindu imagery
Right.
being pulled from our culture and then being shown as this fictitious reality that doesn't actually exist.
Right.
And it's not meant to portray Hinduism, but actually
Right.
it is.
It is, yeah. And the idea is that, okay, young people, they're going to watch this show, and then they naturally are going to develop this aversion towards anything Hindu, because they're going to see women in Hindu clothes, and they'll be like, oh, that would remind them of the show. If they see a spiritual guru, that would also remind them of the show. So the idea is to like just make people really reluctant and sort of encourage people to hate their own tradition and hate their own religion.
That's right. That's right. And that's such an important point you raised because art isn't just art. Art has a lot of meaning and it conveys a lot of ideas and it has a lot
Right.
of possibility to influence minds and hearts,
Yeah.
right? And
Yeah.
it's in its core sense, it can be considered propaganda, right? I mean,
Right.
when you think of propaganda, it isn't just a World War II poster, right? It can actually be the ideas you see in movies that Hollywood puts out, that Bollywood puts out.
Right.
And to think this whole series is just like a coincidence that it all happens to be very Hindu sounding,
Yeah.
but yet it's not actually Hinduism,
I know. That's the best part.
We,
That
we,
you
ha
make,
we have a saying in America, if it walks like a duck, if
Yeah.
it talks like a duck, if
Right.
it quacks like a duck,
Right.
it's
it's definitely
it's
a
a duck,
duck. Right, right. And in fact, the funny thing is they could get away with it because this was Hindu, like they couldn't have done this had they shown a Muslim practice and, not called it Muslim. People would have definitely gone after them because they'd be like, oh, listen, this is clearly a Muslim practice. So you're essentially trying to make fun of it. So stop lying and stop telling people that this is a fiction. And so, but because this Hindus, they think Hindus are like the soft people, they're not going to do anything. So they just take advantage of you.
Yeah, that's right. Imagine, let's as a thought exercise, imagine the reversal, right? Imagine
Yeah.
a Hindu author,
Right.
a Hindu director, and kind of
Right.
like a Hindu production company that leans more conservative, more nationalist, and,
Yeah.
and pro-Hindu, right? And
Yeah.
imagine they made a show, a big budget production,
Yeah.
where all the women are forced to wear burqas and everyone
Yeah.
says Allahu Akbar. And it's very, if you're not a Hindu,
Right.
sorry, if not a Muslim, you get
Yeah.
converted or killed, right?
Yeah.
People would go ape shit. They would go
That's right.
crazy.
That's
There would
right.
be rioting, there'd be looting, there would be people burned in effigy, right?
Right, right.
I
And
mean,
on the point of Allahu Akbar, it also, if you watch the show, you can see these chanting and mantras being recited in the background, So, I mean, this is clearly a Hindu thing, So you cannot like hide that.
that's,
And
well, imagine like, you show a disclaimer in front of our show where
Right.
it says, this is not meant to offend anybody or depict Islam.
yeah,
We'll call it Shmislam, and we'll use
Yeah.
all the terminology and all the practices of Islam and
Right.
make it sound horrible and totalitarian,
yeah.
but we're not calling it Islam, so it's okay. It's ridiculous.
It's ridiculous, definitely. Also, as you can see, the main character is a Hindu woman and he's married to a Muslim man. And mind you, the character that plays the Hindu woman is actually a Muslim woman. So not to call her, character into question or anything, but imagine if there was a Hindu woman who played the role of a woman in burqa being oppressed constantly in a similar setting. It would be such a rage. People would essentially attack that actor or actress for, for bigotry or for doing something to, attack a particular religion. But here, this doesn't even seem to be an issue. Here seems like they just made it look like so natural.
That's right. That's exactly right. I mean, you take a step back from all of this, right? And you kind of got to ask yourself, what's going on? Like, what is this about? Like, why are they doing this? And
Right.
there's a clear political agenda,
Right.
I mean, the elections were just, we just had Modi elected.
That's
And this
right.
show comes out a month later.
Not even a month later, like 2 to 3 weeks later. Yeah. So 3 weeks
Wow.
later. Yeah.
Wow. So, given that the author's past statements about, the
Yeah.
BJP is this dangerous totalitarian force, and we're going to see Hindu kind of purification camps in our near future.
Yeah.
This is all meant to show people, watch out, especially young people who watch Netflix, right? Like half of India is under 25, right? So
Right.
this is designed to inject narratives in their mind about how
Right.
Hinduism is dangerous, totalitarian, and ugly
Right.
and racist.
Right. Right.
And if you don't wake up, we're going to have this crazy world in front of us that's going to be Nazi Germany in 20,
Yeah.
20 years or so.
And the timing of it is, like you said, is very strategic because, they anticipated Modi winning the election. And so obviously they realized that there's going to be an audience that would be sort of curious to find out, what Hindu India and, what is it actually going to look like. And so they're basically capitalizing on that curiosity, they're just kind of trying to tinker with it. And also on the flip side, had the Congress party won, had BJP lost, this show again would have sort of, given people that relief that, oh, thank God that BJP didn't win, because otherwise, this is what the reality would look like. So it works for them either ways, it's just very smartly done.
That's right. That's right. It's pop culture is propaganda.
Right.
Until you realize that these massive, big budget productions with these very political companies and authors behind it,
Yeah.
it isn't an accident. It's not a coincidence. This isn't art for its own sake. This is art with a purpose.
Right.
Which is the most dangerous kind of art, because you watch this and you think, oh wow, this is a cool show. This is really interesting and really amazingly acted and very well done. It's obviously, they put a lot of thought and effort into this.
Uh-huh.
But it was
Yeah.
designed to promote a certain narrative, which is that Hindus are backwards, they're
Right.
racist, they're anti-women, and
Right.
our Hindu culture is something to be feared and loathed. They're
Right.
not being subtle about this at all.
At all. That's right.
All right, so Ayush, what's the bottom line here? Really, what we're talking about is media as a means of human influence,
Mhm.
media as a political propaganda tool.
Right.
Nowadays in the modern society, we don't read books anymore. We don't, study history in any meaningful way outside of school. We
Right.
get our view of reality from the things we watch, right?
Right. Right.
And places like Netflix, which are one of the biggest media platforms in the world now,
Right.
are a key vector for promoting certain content, certain ideas, certain narratives
Right.
about the world, right?
Right.
So we're being socially engineered by these companies, right?
Mm-mm.
To believe
so-
certain things
yeah.
and to buy certain things and to,
Right.
to hate certain things.
Right. So essentially, all of this is a tool to push capitalism, a tool to essentially everything ties together, like the media company and the companies that produce these products are all tied together. They all work in sync so as to go to a native culture, go to a native market, and help make people hate themselves, make people hate their tradition, so that opens them to buying other products. Does that make sense? Is that something that the ultimate goal seems to be like?
That's definitely part of it, right? I mean,
Yeah.
I think that, there's a saying, if you don't stand for something, you'll fall for anything.
Right.
So if you have your own identity, your own culture, your own traditions,
Right.
you'll never take on my traditions and my culture and my ideology, right?
Right.
So it isn't just capitalism, but it's also political ideology too, right?
Right.
It's economic, colonialism, it's political colonialism. These are all, techniques that have been used by the West against native populations for
Right.
centuries.
Right.
And this is the latest kind of iteration of that same war, right? And it's
Interesting.
exactly what you described. It's for Hindus meant to hate themselves, to
Yeah.
doubt themselves, to fear
Yeah.
their customs as being
Yeah.
racist and oppressive and bigoted. And
Right.
the idea is then you drop all of that, and what do? You dress like an American, you
Right.
talk like an American, you buy Western products and you buy Western
Right.
clothing, you adopt Western ideologies, right?
Yeah.
So we all become good little liberals
Mm-hmm.
and stop believing our own stuff because our own stuff is bad and hateful and backwards, right?
Right.
And as a Hindu growing up in America, I've seen this firsthand when I go to India. They don't want their own culture at all. They want Western stuff. They want American stuff, right?
Right. Right. Interesting. In fact, I was just thinking that if I were to, describe it from a from a international trade standpoint, all of this, like for Laila as a show is a way to enable market access, right? Like this show would lay a platform, would lay sort of foundation for foreign entities to come in and access more market. Because, someone, let's say someone in a small town is going to watch this show and he'll be like, oh, wow, Hinduism sucks. This is so bad. Why am I doing this? Why was I born in this? Let me go to McDonald's and, buy a cheeseburger instead because this seems cool. Cheeseburger is devoid of any caste system, any, racial connotation. So I think that's the idea, right? They're going to end up hating their clothing. They're going to stop wearing saffron. They're going to stop wearing their traditional clothing, and instead they would go to like a outlet and buy clothes from maybe Nike or Gap or Tommy Hilfiger or whatever these brands are. So it seems like all sort of this all these different stakeholders work in sync and use media as a way to access market, or as a way to open new markets. Is that something that you agree with?
Absolutely. I mean, media is a form of psychological warfare, right?
Interesting. Yeah.
It isn't just art.
Mm-hmm.
It's art with a political purpose, right?
Right.
To make you believe a certain narrative and to hate certain things, to love certain things.
Right.
I remember I grew up in the 80s as a kid, and I remember seeing all these movies, right? Where it was all about Russia being bad, the Soviet Union was bad, and America was good, and it was all about Rambo beating the Russians, right?
Right.
Because that was the height of the Cold War,
mm-hmm.
right? So Hollywood is promoting a certain narrative, which was America was the good guy and Russia was the aggressor, and we need to fight the Russians, and that's what made made people really buy into the political narrative and the economic narrative of like supporting defense contractors.
Right.
There's a political agenda here, and it's not just not just this show really. You can see a pattern in the West of Western media portraying Hindus as backwards and uncivilized, right? Like the first movie I saw as a kid growing up was Indiana Jones and Temple of Doom, right? Where Indians are portrayed as backwards, as savages eating bugs, eating baby snakes. It was a really crazy, a crazy show. And I know that was a long time ago.
Right.
But, you have a show like Quantico that's a modern show with Priyanka Chopra.
Right.
And one of their episodes recently, they had an episode where they had Hindu terrorists trying to kill off a peace process. And the way they knew they were Hindu terrorists was they found that they were wearing Rudraksh beads, Hindu sacred beads. And Priyanka Chopra found the beads and she was like, they're Hindus, So this is a clear pattern of portraying our culture and our peoples as dangerous, as misogynistic, as backwards and uncivilized. It's really the British Raj's portrayal of India in modern times.
Interesting. In fact, if I were to summarize, it would be right to say that Hinduism as a lifestyle is a threat to the socio-economic, political established system, and that is why every attempt is made to break Hinduism so that people become weak and ultimately end up submitting to the Western socio-economic model.
That's right. Yeah. I mean, and the funny thing is, all the things are projecting upon us, whether it's the totalitarianism and genocide and racial purity, all these things. Those were concepts that weren't even local to Hinduism and in our culture. We were one of the most diverse, inviting peoples on the planet. And in fact, it's only when you look at the Western ideologies like Abrahamism of the history of crusades and of inquisitions and genocide. Those are all classical. Those all went on in the West, right? And yet here they are projecting those same evils on us.
Right.
That's one of the greatest crimes they've committed. And yet here we are, passive and subjugated, and we go, please teach us about ourselves, fancy American. And it's sad, it's really sad that we don't even know our history at this point.
That's right. Wow. Well, I think we're going to post all these links if you're interested in reading more about how media is used as a propaganda tool. So we've listed down some articles below our video. You can find the links there. And thank you so much for watching. Hopefully you all like the video. Please post your comments and your questions, and we look forward to making more videos like this. Thank you.